Good evening and welcome to the regular town council meeting of Weaverville, North Carolina, Monday, February 27, 2023. So council members, you've had opportunity to review the rather hefty agenda and agenda items we have for this evening. Are there any adjustments or approval of the agenda for this evening?
Mayor, I'd like to request 4F and 4G be moved to the discussion and action item section, please.
Okay, so we are going to move from the consent agenda items F regarding Greenwood Park and G regarding school calendars from the consent agenda to discussion items. I'm going to put the Greenwood item as D1, and the reason I'm doing this is we have a few presentations from folks at the beginning of the discussion items section, so we'll hear from them first. So D1 will be Greenwood Park, and D2 will be school calendars.
Thank you.
Any other adjustments to tonight's agenda? Hearing none, can I get an approval for the agenda with the adjustments we just made?
So moved.
Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. Speaking of consent agenda, Town Manager Coffey, would you go through the items in the consent agenda?
Yes, sir, and good evening to all of you. Consent agenda begins with the minutes from the January 23rd regular meeting. That's on page 3. On page 6, you have the monthly tax report for several pages there. At this point in time, as of January, we were at 98%, which is a very typical percentage for this time of year. Beginning on page 11, you have a budget amendment for the police department. This is for sale of property, and it's actually for the sale of GovDeals property, and to go back into the fleet. On page 13, actually pages 14, 15, and 16, you have 3 proclamations. One being that of designating March 2023 as American Red Cross Month. The next one on page 15 is designating April 22nd as Earth Day in Weaverville. Proclamation on page 16 is designating April 28th as Arbor Day in Weaverville. Continuing on, you have on page 17, this is a request to consider taking action to renew a water commitment letter for the commercial development located at 16, 18, and 20 Garrison Branch Road for 1 additional year. You have more information there asking the town council approve the renewal of this commitment for 1 year. On page, let's see, we're skipping the next 2, so we're going to go to page 31. On page 31, you have a resolution, beginning of a resolution authorizing staff to join with the North Carolina Investment Pool. This is another opportunity, as you all are aware. Ms. Dozier, in her capacity as finance director, always is looking for opportunities for us to gain more in our accounts and to basically make more investments and earn more as we go forward. This is to give us the opportunity to join in the North Carolina Investment Pool. Right now, the current year 7-day yield for the investment pool is 4.7. That's significantly higher than we are gaining in any of our other pools. We do have to, town council does have to authorize us to enter that with the resolution on page 36, and I would recommend that we go forward in that capacity. On page 70, we are asking for the approval of an amendment by the planning board. This is for a change in rules of procedure, and that was adopted by the planning board on February 7th. This is again, going back several months ago when we initially changed the name of the planning. It was Planning and Zoning Board, and we changed it to Planning Board, and this is just to continue that and make that adjustment.
It also eliminates the need for a second for motions.
Mr. Mayor, that's all for the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the consent agenda?
Yeah, I do have a question. You mentioned the fact that council had to approve the investment pool. Are you gonna bring that up for separate item, or should we take a vote now?
It'll be part of the
It's
consent
included
agenda.
as part of the consent agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions of the manager? If there are none, do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Ms. Cuffey, we continue to item number 5, the town manager's report.
Certainly, and thank you again. Very briefly, just to give you a report from my office. The first one, we'll talk about this further as we get further into the agenda, but just to give you and the public an update on the drinking water state revolving fund. We were not awarded our second application for either project. We simply did not score well enough. You have some explanation there from Withers Ravenel. But again, we'll talk about that, and this is for the resiliency projects and the expansion of the water treatment plant. On the second bullet there in the manager's report, last year, as you'll recall, we hosted early voting the last Saturday before the regular election here in Weaverville. Did that at the community center. I'm again recommending that we do that here at the community center on November 4th, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. If town council wishes to add more days, certainly we can do that. But this is what we did last year, so it was a good starting point for me to bring forward to you. Third thing there is bike helmet initiative. This is an NCDOT project and application project. And our fire department, our police department are working hand in hand to, they submitted an application for the bike helmet initiative to receive 75 bike helmets to be distributed to area children and protect safety as a part of that NCDOT program. I will update you if we receive that. Also, Vice Mayor McKenna asked that I give a very brief update on our pickleball courts and recreation complex. And so where we are with that is Mr. Pennell has been working with the architect, the landscape architect. We're waiting for their final designs. Once we get those, we will put the project out to bid and move forward. So we, at this point in time, we are simply waiting on the architect to get those drawings back to us. We have to have those in order to move forward for bidding.
Well, let's hope we get them completed before summertime, because I've learned how to play pickleball this past month and plan on utilizing those. Thank you. Are there any questions of the town manager regarding her report? No? Great. We'll move on to the next item, which is general public comments. The town council really appreciates hearing opinions and ideas from members of the community. We've only got one person who has signed up this evening. I do ask you to remember that when you want to make a statement, you approach the podium, state your name and your address, and confine your comments to 3 minutes. That being said, our only person who signed up for this evening to speak is Eileen Reichman.
Good evening. Thanks for receiving me. Eileen Regan. It's a hard day.
I'll never get it.
I know. Both my names are hard. I just want to thanks for all the work. I know that everyone's been putting in and reviewing about 171 Monticello Road that will be voted on tonight. I just want to point out, in your code, in your agenda tonight, it says that a meeting was held on 11/20/22 to follow section of the code 20-3203E2. And that was with the neighbors. And the meeting did happen, but when you read the code, it does say that notice of the community meeting shall be posted on the property and mailed to all the property owners within 200 feet of the community property boundaries, not more than 25 days, or et cetera. And I pointed this out in an email, but none of Rolling Acres got those notices. Apparently 75 went out, but nobody got written notice of that meeting. So the reason I'm bringing it up is it's hard to trust the process if all the steps aren't gonna be followed. So I hope that, if we're gonna go ahead and build and do affordable housing, let's follow the procedures and do it the right way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Also, I would like to remind folks of the conflicts of interest with council members. It is the duty of the mayor and every town council member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of such. We do have one item tonight that Councilman Jackson has expressed that he may have a conflict with, and that is item 7C, so he will not be voting on that item. Are there any other conflicts that council members would like to bring to our attention? Very good. Thank you. So now moving into item 7, discussion and action items for this evening. And first up, I'd like to invite Forrest Weaver up. Forrest is a lifetime member of the Weaverville community. And ask Forrest if he can speak not only on Black history, since it's Black History Month, but to speak specifically about Black history in Weaverville. So Forrest, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, for the invite and the interest in our community. And I know your agenda is heavy tonight, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get just a brief overlay. And let me say this, our community, later this summer, we're going to plan an event where we can go over in detail our history. We're going to invite the public, we're going to let you know, and hopefully we're going to have food, everything, so everybody come down and have a good time. And for those interested, we're going to post that so you'll know it. And so this is going to be brief, because there's no way in the world I can, with your agenda, that I can give you our history in that short period of time, but I'm going to give you just a little bit. My name is Forrest Weaver.
Ignore that.
That's all. Captain Short.
I'm second now.
I appreciate it. See you next week.
My apologies.
That's okay. My name is Forrest Weaver. I was born in 1949. I'm 73 years old. Except for 3 years I was in the service, I've been right here in Weaverville. In the early 50s, my father bought property here in Weaverville on East Street. That's where my home is now, on East Street. The property from the top of East Street to the top of East Street and the hillside, going down to Rimms Creek Road, all that property was owned by Black families. Black families owned their homes, they owned the property, they worked, they paid their taxes, they contributed to this community. There were a total of 24 homes, Black-owned homes from the top of East Street going down back at the top of East Street, Hillside Street. And sadly, we just buried one of our members Saturday. We just had a death and buried him, so our numbers are shrinking. Our church is 110 years old. The schoolhouse or our community center is the building that my mom went to school in, 1st through 8th grade. At that time, we were not allowed to go to the schools right here. We had to go to Shiloh once I got up. I was the first Black student in Northwestern High School, one of 3. I tell you all this to tell you that we have been a part of this community since as long as I can remember. I was 3 or 4 when my dad moved here. We have, in our community, we have professional folk. We work hard, we support the police. I'm a retired police officer, 32 years with the Asheville Police Department, where I was assigned to the major crimes unit, where I worked homicides and murders, things of that nature. And when we look back on our history here in Weaverville, I wouldn't live anywhere else. I enjoy living here. I wouldn't move if somebody offered a free place anywhere else. This is my home, I'm not going anywhere. And that's how we feel about it. This is Norma She's a school teacher in Asheville. Her father was assistant fire chief here in Weaverville many years ago. I belonged to the fire department growing up. We had family members that worked in the building next door, the Reagan building. My brother was line foreman for the phone company. We had black folk working at the Exxon station across the street, the Gulf station, now it's a garage. We had folk working there. We have worked all over this town. Her father worked at the drugstore here when it was on the corner where the bakery is. And when we talk about our history, our roots are deep here. We have been here forever. We have had some trying times by living here because of the nature of some people. At one time, when we're at we call it the schoolhouse, it's a community center. And at one time, that building was further down the hill. It was classified as a Rosenwald school. That's a colored school back in those days. And because that building was moved from the bottom of Hillside Street to its present location, it cannot be classified as a historical building now. The law. So when we, especially in the last few years, it's hard for me. I'm just straightforward. There's no foolishness to it. Right is right and wrong is wrong. And Mayor, you have my number. Anytime you need anything that we can do, our community, all you have to do is call, and I'm there. But let me get back on the community. From the top of the hill, Hillside Street, there was Mr. George Porter. He was a cook here, right on the corner right here. He was a cook in that store. He was famous for his chicken pot pies. His son, Junior Porter, was a decorated World War II veteran. Many, many medals. Wounded, just the whole 9 yards. His mother cleaned and ironed for people all over Weaverville. The son would take the laundry and put it in a wagon and pull it up the street here and pass it out to the customers. The next building down was my Uncle Gene. He worked at the Exxon station. The next building down was my aunt, my granddaddy. My granddaddy was 96, he died in 1923. His name was George Weston, Papa. He was a dowser. He found wells all over this part of the state. I have a newspaper article I'm going to bring to y'all that tells about his things back in the day when there was a problem finding water anywhere in this area. They would come and get Papa. And Papa was a dowser. He would find water with a peach limb. I only wish I was smart enough when I was 12 or 13 to sit down and talk to him when I saw those peach limbs hanging on a nail on his door in his little house. I regret that. Right below that, George Flack, right below that, the Rowlands, right below that, Curry Gray, right below that was Gaston grandfather who worked for Reagan. It was the next building over where the Florida Fire Department is. It was Reagan Coal Yard. Across on that hill is where Cecil, who we married Saturday, where he lived. On the left-hand side, Leonard Barnett and his family. Going up on the left side, there was Miss Alice Brooks. On the right side, there was Mr. Fred Beard, Mr. Tom Brooks, and another family, I cannot remember the name. There was, on that street right there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 homes going up East Street. Further up on the right-hand side is where my father bought property. From the road all the way back. I built my property on the tail end of that. Across the street, there was a family. There were 3 houses, 1, 2, 3 houses on the right-hand side. There were 2 houses. Before you get to the curb, there's 2 houses, then 2 more. Total, and all that property was owned by our black community. My mother washed and cleaned clothes and took care of families, raised children here in Weaverville. She raised the children of the Weavers off of Church Street. And what's so funny about that, while I was in school and played football on the same team with Tom, who's a friend of mine, my mother was at his house cooking his dinner. And my mother left his house to go home and take care of her kids, where she had 4. So we were proud people. We worked. We have never lived off the state, and we never will. We paid our taxes. We're professional. Coming out of our community, we have law enforcement officers, we have teachers, we have firemen. Her brother is retired assistant battalion chief at the city of Asheville. We have people in law enforcement, lawyers. We have people that came from working the street, like her uncle, who picked up trash here in the town of Weaverville for many, many years, Gaston Jr. Ray. I know some folk remember him. I'm gonna get out of here because I know y'all are busy. But in closing, I'd like to say our history means so much to us, especially now that it's under attack. For the last several years, our history has been, people are trying to, I don't understand why, but to do away with it. Our books, our history. History, if we don't pay attention to our history, it's going to be repeated. Until we talk to those people that is involved in some of these going on now. And I invite any member of the town council, anytime you have any questions or call us, we're open, we're just as friendly as you can be. Whenever you're driving up down the hill, down Hillside Street, and you see us, you're welcome. You don't need an invitation. During the summer, we get together and say, let's go cook. We go to community building and we hang out and we cook and fellowship with one another. Our church is the center of our community. When we have service, it's not like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 agenda on that. Sometimes we go to church and there may not be a sermon, but there needs to be prayer because something's going on in our community that we need to address. So we'll gather around the pulpit and we'll pray. We'll talk with one another. We'll comfort one another. I'll say again, our community, we're strong, we're bold, and we'll say what's on our mind. I take it upon myself that I should have been more involved in the council and the town of Weaverville. We have so many folk that come up to us and ask us about certain things in our community. And I think if we had been more proactive, putting it out, that some of those questions would have been answered. So I invite you all at any time you have anything at all, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. Now, I'm gonna get out of here. Are there any questions? Because I know you're busy. Y'all got a ton of stuff to do. And it's hard for me to tell you anything about our history. There's so much I can tell you, but we had all the property was owned by black folk. Now down Hillside Street, there are 3 black families that still live on Hillside Street that own their property. Up East Street, there are 1, 2, 3 on East Street. Our numbers are shrinking. Our children have moved away. Our children, we have some here, but a lot of our folk have moved away. And so our community is shrinking and we're going to get smaller. But I want y'all to know the history of our community. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. We really appreciate that. And I certainly hope that when you have your community event, that you will invite the council members to attend.
We will. Okay, thank you all.
All right,
Thanks
thank you.
very much.
Recently, the Weaverville Business Association had an opportunity to give some money away, and Bill Boughton, who is the president of the WBA, would you come and tell us about that program?
To follow. Thank you. Good evening. Last year, the Duke Energy Foundation announced $500,000 in funding to help local businesses, from restaurants to retailers, pivot to accommodate the changing environment through their hometown revitalization grant program. The pandemic challenged small businesses across Duke Energy's North Carolina service territory and reminded us of the tremendous value small businesses bring to creating vibrant downtowns. Duke Energy's Foundation's $500,000 grant program awarded 20 communities across the state a $25,000 grant via a partnership with a local 501c3 nonprofit, and we're proud that Weaverville was one of the communities chosen for this grant. In late 2022, the Duke Energy Foundation awarded the Weaverville Business Association the opportunity to run a microgrant program through this hometown revitalization grant. These microgrants were to be made available to small businesses looking to improve the way that they operate in our post-pandemic context. We were delighted for the opportunity to invest $25,000 into the local economy and open the applications to any businesses in the 28787, 28701, or 28709 zip codes. To accomplish the micro grant award decision-making, we put together a committee of community members, leaders, and small business owners. This group scored the applications against the expectations set by the Duke Energy Foundation, while also considering the likelihood of success and economic impact on the business itself and the community as a whole. From 21 strong applications, we were proud to select 13 projects that were chosen to be funded. The Weaverville Business Association would like to thank Duke Energy Foundation for its generosity and guidance in this process, and all the businesses who took the time to submit their application for funding. We were honored to have been able to administer this program. Thank you.
Thank you. An excellent program to help locally owned business in our area expand. So thank you for doing that, and thank the WBA. Next item is item 7C is 171 Monticello Road, action on annexation and the conditional district zoning. And Attorney Jackson, can you bring us up to speed?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to all of you. Since Town Council held your public hearings on both the annexation and the conditional zoning, conditional district zoning at your January 17th workshop meeting, you've also received the planning board recommendation, and since that has all been done, it is now eligible for you to take some action on both of these. There are proposed ordinances in your packet, one governing the annexation and one governing the conditional district zoning. As consistent with your previous practices, you usually go ahead and discuss the zoning first so that the applicant does have an opportunity to withdraw its annexation application if where you're headed with this is not going to allow them to achieve their development goals. But I think that what you have in the conditional district ordinance as written is consistent with what I think I've heard town council speak about. The one thing that I wanted to tell you is that the set of conditions that are in this ordinance have been reviewed by the developer, and both the developer and owner have found that these are acceptable. It's only conditions that the developer and owner have agreed to can actually legally be bound. I will note that several town council members expressed concern over one of the conditions that previously required a minimum of 50% of the units be affordable in order to maintain the higher than normal density. The developer has kind of gone back to the drawing board on that and has committed to 100% of the units being affordable. So in order to maintain their density at just over 14 units per acre, they must maintain 100% of their units as affordable for, I think it's 30 years. Yes. 30 years. Yeah. Happy to answer any questions for you, but at this point, there is it's fine for you to take action on this. If you have any questions, both the Cox of the developer and their attorney, Mr. Ost, are here if there are questions.
Thank you. We've had opportunity to talk about this project quite a bit. Are there any questions or comments regarding this project?
Yeah, just one, are the provisions for sidewalks, which I really appreciate y'all's effort in that, is that the same from the last iteration?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, good, thanks.
It actually probably works well with the town manager's recommendation coming out of your bike ped presentation last week, where she suggested the town council perhaps set up a capital reserve fund for sidewalks. This project may actually be one of those methods of funding.
Okay.
For that.
So, I'm trying to read this, I guess it's G3.
Explain that to me like I'm a third grader.
So, the setup to it is that the developer is assured that they can get the necessary approvals from DOT to get this, to know exactly what they're gonna have to do on this before this approval. And so what they're proposing is that they will pay $150,000 to the town of Weaverville. And actually your bike ped plan has some of that in it, where it's a fee in lieu of them building that sidewalk. And so they will contribute $150,000 to the town in order to secure these improvements.
And I'm trying to look at the plan, so is that in lieu of the sidewalks on their own property? So they have property and we know they can't control, and we've had lots of conversations about sidewalks up to the 4-lane or sidewalks up and over to Walmart. So what I'm trying to get my head around is, and then my next question will be for Dale, what's a sidewalk cost per foot and how many feet were on there?
So that's the first question, is the sidewalk on their own property on Mono?
So I think part of that, and you wanna?
Yeah, excuse me. I think the idea behind it was we're not to the point yet at which we know the best route to get over to the shopping center would be to go up and in, forget the name of the road that goes into it, or Gill Branch Road. So the idea with putting the money there is that whenever the decision comes, the funding is there. So to answer your question, the 150 could be used to get folks across the street directly over to Gill Branch and not have the sidewalk going along Monticello, or it could be used to go up Monticello, the other alternative.
Right. But I'm looking at the plan and I'm not an engineer.
But on the property for this project, I don't see a sidewalk at all. And again, maybe it is, maybe it's that little gravelly looking thin line, is that, it's not labeled?
What page is that?
I think I asked this question the last
Page
time. You plan on
94.
putting the sidewalk all along the front of your property,
There you
right?
go.
It depends which way in CDOT, which way it's determined is the best route to get folks from our community over to the shopping center. The traditional route that we had spoke of is to go up Monticello toward the shopping center and turn in there. It could be fairly expensive to go that route, primarily because of the cost to build sidewalks on the neighboring parcel. There would need to be retaining walls, probably would need to be a stoplight installed. I mean, it could be really expensive to go that route. So
I think what they're asking is not the story that connects them to the shopping center, but along the road frontage of your property.
There is no sidewalks on the plan.
right. Well, I mean, so the goal of the sidewalks, as we've discussed them before, was to get our residents over to the shopping center.
Right.
So if they go straight across the street and up Gill Branch, then it negates the need for the sidewalks to go all the way.
Right, but that's not the only goal. So we've made a lot of mistakes in the past. So we didn't force Walmart to put a sidewalk up to Monticello. So Rolling Acres, if they wanted to walk, so this is the whole sidewalk plan. If we don't start putting sidewalks in, then we can't go back and force. So the simple answer is there's no sidewalks right now. And if we want them in, we take it out of our $150,000. That's how I'm hearing it. Okay, so I don't see sidewalks in the plan. And as a council, we have talked time and time again about regretting, there's no sidewalks to get across Reems Creek at the cow pasture. So, I was driving down there the other day and sure enough, somebody's walking across the little bridge. So what I wanted to see was sidewalks on the frontage road from their end of the property to the other end of the property. And then I wanted Landon, which I knew he couldn't do, was to figure out how to get across the street because of the DOT, the other family that owns it. The county could take that little strip. If you zoom in on that map, you'll see the little itty bitty strip of land north of it. That's actually a separate parcel. Then you got, people who don't want to sell it. Does the county want to take it by eminent domain? And can you get up to that intersection, which is I'm not an engineer, but a normal place you'd have a stoplight, as you mentioned, a sidewalk. So I see the 150,000 to do all that, to get it up the road if we can work with DOT, not in lieu of sidewalks on his property. So and I appreciate, I'm glad you guys moved the buildings, that recommendation we gave you. I love that your buildings are now adjacent to the woods and not to rolling acres, but that's, yeah. Simple answer.
My understanding
James, I
is
believe-
we're waiting on DOT's recommendations on where the best place is to have the sidewalks to get from the development to the shopping across the street.
I'm going to ask Mr. Eller, I think he tried to raise his hand a couple of times. Do you have something to add, sir?
I just was going to say that sidewalks are shown on plan for the entire length of Monticello Road. And right here.
Okay, there's not
the
labeled.
house is where the sidewalk is identified as to connect from the interior of the property to Monticello Road.
Did everyone get that?
We're not opposed to building the sidewalk along Monticello, in addition to the 150,000, if that's.
There it is. It's the little gravelly road. Right.
Okay, so there is a sidewalk, okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great.
You should have been more forceful 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, smack them around occasionally.
Tell you.
So,
Are there any other questions?
so Mr. Cox, you would be amenable to an amendment to the condition to say that you're gonna build the sidewalk in front of the, plus the 150 to get it from?
Correct.
Excellent. Any other questions about the project? If not, is there a motion?
Adopt the annexation ordinance and the ordinance approving the conditional zoning
Excellent.
As amended.
outline.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion on the table? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Welcome to town. Next, we're going to go,
I'm sorry, hang on. Let's make sure, did we get both, I'm sorry, I was writing and listening at the same time. Did we get both the annexation ordinance and the conditional district?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Both together.
excellent. Thank you. Next is item 7D, proposed concept related to greenways and biking, and Mark Andrews is going to give us some ideas what he has.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, Town Council, and staff, thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I've been spending some time looking over the town properties and thinking of ways that the town could incorporate some more tight trails, and I'm going to present some of my thoughts to you today. The next slide, please. I'll start by saying that North Carolina legislature has designated 2023 the year of the trail to encourage trail use, investment, and participation. All those bullet points you see there, I think what I'm going to speak about today covers most everything that the Year of the Trail strives to accomplish. Next, please. The first place I'll discuss is areas around Reems Creek where town owns property. This just gives you a little lay of the land. You can see Lake Louise. And as you go to the left of Lake Louise, the town owns two large parcels, 15 Quarry Road and 127 Quarry Road, that is currently used by the town for the Public Works Department and the Police Department. I feel there's a lot of opportunity here to kind of share the land a little bit more and allow for some public access. Like I said, right now, those Quarry Road parcels are blocked off by signage and gates, not a lot. Next. So my ideas here is to first incorporate a roughly 1 mile path along Reeves Creek, which borders the southern edge of the both quarry road parcels. And then in the future, potentially connect that to the development that's happening along Gill Branch Road to connect that area all the way up to Monticello Commons, where the Walmart and all the new apartment complexes have been developed up by the interstate. And then lastly, I'll talk a little bit about incorporating or adding a multi-use forested trail in the 15 quarry road parcels. Next. So this here shows in pink the conceptual design of a footpath along Reeves Creek. You can see Reeves Creek is that sort of bluer line that runs along the southern half of the image and then takes a sharp northerly turn and then goes off the picture. Can you go back just one for a second? Oops. One more. There. So the access would start either at the water wheel and continue along the Reeves Creek, or by Quarry Road, where a footpath could be developed alongside of Quarry Road to get down to the river. The limitation here is some privately owned property between where the water wheel is and where our property at 15 Quarry Road starts. Hopefully we could secure some right-of-way access to have the trail run the whole length of Reeves Creek. Next. When you're back in there, it's beautiful. That's just a picture showing one of the sites. There's nice woods, clear opening. So most of the path is more or less already there. It would just take a little bit of just development to kind of establish it as an official footpath. Next. This idea is really nothing new. This is an image from the conceptual greenway plan from Buncombe County. It already identifies this as a greenway for the northern part of our county. I think what we could do here as a town is lead this effort by establishing the trail and showing, one, that the town is interested in greenways, establishing at least the initial component of this greenway, and then the rest could be built from what we've already started. Thanks. And this slide here shows how in the future this potential Reeves Creek Greenway idea could connect through the proposed development along Gill Branch Road, where if that was known about our interest to connect our area up in Monticello Commons down to the town-owned properties, potential greenway could be further enhanced through that whole area. And so you would connect more or less all of the apartment complexes such as the Retreat, Hawthorne, Holton, and allow people to recreate all the way down into the Lake Louise area and then further get into downtown without having to get in your car. Next. Lastly here, just a conceptual idea of putting in a forested multi-use trail. This would be more for like a biking, hiking, dog walking, birding, what have you. But in the forested component of 15 Quarry Road, these designs here, the one on the left, it just shows where the access point would be along the Reeves Creek path that I described. The other one on the right shows a similar design, but the access point would be right off of Lake Louise where Quarry Road starts, if we never get to establishing a footpath along the river. Okay, yep. You can skip that. Next, I also want to talk about the Weaverville watershed property. Next slide, please. I'll show a little lay of the land for folks who might be unfamiliar. So in the sort of upper left of the picture, you can see where the Lake Louise and the Quarry Road properties are. But down in the lower right of the picture is a large black square. That's the old Weaverville watershed. It's a 300-acre parcel between Ellers Cove Road and Elk Mountain Scenic Highway. Next. It's currently under conservation easement that does allow for non-destructive nature-based recreation, hiking, biking, birding, foraging, things like that. Here too, the property is gorgeous. It's a very open sort of semi-mature forested property. Just some pictures from when I was able to just scope the property. Next, please. So there's an existing road network in place already that I think we could utilize to at least start the development of this property. These roads, they're not really roads anymore because there's trees growing up, so at best you can get like an ATV or a small like a gator type car or vehicle through there, but it's perfect for easy biking, hiking, and things like that. Most of the roads have minimal erosion or degradation evident, they're in good shape. The one path that goes along the southern edge of the property does have a couple of downed trees that we need to clear. So next. So my first idea here is to open it up for essentially access along the existing road that's open. That's this one pink loop that you can see. And conceptually being more or less like a bike in, bike out. There's no parking, so you'd have to bike up to the property, you can drop in, do a loop, and then exit out the same place where you started. The next idea is to clear the southern edge of the property. You can go to the next slide. It's that now green path along the southern edge. Once that's clear, then you could connect it back out to Elk Mountain Scenic Highway and allow people to sort of bike through, at least along Elk Mountain Highway. But more or less just opening up the existing roads is the first step, I think, that's pretty easy. Next. The next thing I think would be very important to do is to develop a connector trail to connect with the existing road network, and then exit it out to where the town, right-of-way access is to access Eller's Cove Road. And so this would allow a through travel of the property and get you to what I'm going to show on the next slide here, which is a very nice road / gravel mountain bike. You can mountain bike from this, where you could do a loop path from downtown Weaverville or the lake to essentially go up Heron Cove to Upper Heron Cove Road to Elk Mountain Highway, go through the watershed property, exit out on Elders Cove Road, and then go to and then get back into downtown without ever getting on a really busy or a road that one might feel overly nervous about being on a bike. And that is Reems Creek. You avoid Reems Creek, you avoid Merriman Avenue, and it's a very nice ride. Currently, Elk Mountain Highway is very popular with cyclists, and so I know if we were able to open something like this up for cyclists, it would be incredibly popular for folks to do loop routes to and from Weaverville. Next, to further enhance the property, I have here where we could add some parking areas at some of the various access points of the trails. And this would just be better to serve hikers, because more or less what I've spoken to so far has been primarily to bike to. The next. And then we could add in additional trails to allow people to choose their length of path that they would like to hike or bike. Just connectors along ridges or along the lower areas just better allow a choice of what you'd want to do and how long you'd want to be out on the property. So everything I've stated so far complies with the requirements of the conservation easement. I think a couple of the earlier ones of just opening the existing roads to public use would be very easily implemented at lower minimal cost. Some of the others would require more planning, community input, town input to really see through correctly. Next. And if the town is interested, because to open this up, it would require a management plan, I would love to lead the charge to develop that management plan. Obviously, I would include input from the town and community members. And then lastly, I just want to mention, I have been in contact with the North Carolina Land and Water Fund. There is funds available to help to open up properties for use for folks, for lands that there's a conservation easement. The funding cycle starts in April. And so, if folks are interested, we can try to get on to submit a grant to get some money to help see this process forward. Thank you.
Interesting. Thank you very much. What questions do you all have for Mr. Hendricks?
It would be a bike loop only? No
No.
cars?
No cars.
No cars?
No car, no.
Okay.
Bike or the conservation easement, it's only non-destructive nature-based recreation, so hiking, biking.
Good.
No cars.
The The conservation easement will supersede anything that
Right.
anyone can do on the
Right.
property.
Can we get a copy of this presentation?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So can I ask a question? I will say, as being on the MPO board, because this is the year of the trail, there are many grants opportunities. And so I do believe that if we were interested in this, we could have Hannah come and talk to us about applying for some grants. The other thing I would ask Jennifer is, if we did something like this, would it open the town up for any additional responsibilities like safety and trail maintenance, trash? Because I know with it being a conservation, they can't have trash.
Absolutely. You have maintenance obligations on the property as is. Currently, those maintenance obligations are really to keep trespassers off, to make sure that they're not ATV trespassers especially. But certainly, if the management plan would, I would think, address all of those issues. But whoever is managing that, if the town is managing the recreation in there, then certainly there are again, maintenance responsibilities and liabilities.
Yeah, and I think most of you know, I've been out to both of these areas various times over the last couple of years, and one of them with Mark. And in the Asheville area, we really have an asset here, because to go to areas like this, most people go down to Bent Creek or they go down to Pisgah Forest. So having areas like this in town that are close to businesses where somebody could go do an easy mountain bike ride or a walk with their daughter and then go have a beer or go shopping, you just don't have that. And the other thing is establishing these trails and maintaining them. There's a lot of volunteer groups that love to do this. Carolina Mountain Club, the Mountain Bike Association, and people will typically adopt a section of trail and go maintain it on their own schedule, with the town's concurrence. So it's not that big a deal to keep these up. They kind of are self-maintaining. So I think this is all upside for us.
And I've been in contact with numerous biking and hiking groups too, and there's a strong interest in this. The Pisgah area, Sorbo, the mountain biking community would be interested. I myself am a coach for a youth mountain biking team that does trail work, and we would be interested in sort of participating in trail development and trail maintenance, things like that. And that would include kids, and so would be a real boon, I think, as well. So that, there's a lot of volunteer support, I think, that we could drum up for something like this.
I was just mentioning too that with regard to access to the Lake Louise Park extension, I'll call it, the pathway along the creek there's a piece of it that's actually privately owned, but it's owned by the HOA Waterpoint, and we're in contact with that HOA, asking them to give us, so that people could walk along the side of the creek and get access to the large property 115 and 127, I think you call it on your parcel map. So I think that can happen too, so.
Mr. Mayor, if I may have one caveat, this is the first time I've seen the LRCO, the watershed drawings, and I really like what you've done, Mr. Henry. So one caveat there is, I would want us to be very careful about how we allow use in or around the reservoir itself. So I think that should be carved out of any plan that we get forward with, because I think it can be used at some point if we need that. And I would not want it to be a part of the liability piece.
Wasn't it not carved out it was carved out already?
It is carved out already, but
Right.
it's not.
I get you, right,
It's
no,
not
that's a
secured.
good
It's not
point.
secured at all.
I totally, yeah, but they didn't want the liability.
That's right.
That was part of us
It's not
accepting.
part of the conservation easement.
Correct.
That's right.
Right, so yeah.
But I would hate for us to have trails in and around that when it really needs to be secured.
I see a working model similar to what happened at the community center, even possibly, as if a nonprofit was formed and do something very similar to what happened with the community center potentially. But I think it's great stuff. And I think when we adopted this, I forget who was on council when we accepted the money, and I think this was what you've done. I greatly appreciate the work. I think this was in some of our heads of
Oh, yeah.
being able to do this when we took their money.
So obviously we'd have to acquire the right to, at Lake Louise, acquire an easement there. And also, of course, right now, for a while, there's going to be construction going on the bridge that crosses over Quarry Road. But eventually that will be completed, and then we'd have access to a large chunk of land where we could have the kind of trails that you described here, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Chase?
Would these be worked in conjunction or one at a time, chip them off?
That's a good question. I mean, if you're interested in both, we could work on both. You know, I wasn't sure what the response was gonna be, and if one was gonna be like a no-go, or one, you know, so like, these are just the ideas I had for the property that the town owns. Yeah, depending on where interest is, just.
I would request no action specific tonight, with the exception of you're seeing general head nods that this is a great idea. Simply to give staff time to look at all of the issues that we need to address with regard to securing the reservoir, looking at the management plan issue, that kind of thing. So I would suggest no definitive action tonight, but definitely a plan to move forward in going and progressing the plan.
That makes good sense. Are there any other questions to Mark? Could we get some head nodding? Does everyone think this is a good idea to proceed to making this happen?
Great job,
Excellent.
Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Appreciate you. Next, we'll move on to item 7D1, the Greenwood Park item that we pulled out of the consent agenda. And Attorney Jackson, would you give us an update on this?
Sure. So this is and I'm going to call on Public Works Director Pennell also to assist me on this. This is a single-family subdivision, 73-lot subdivision that was granted approval. Granted a water commitment approved back in February of 2020. It has clearly lapsed, and so they're now wanting to go ahead and renew that. And so they have submitted an application for that commitment letter dated in early January. Nothing has really changed in that. I think that Mr. Pennell has indicated that they've had just some delays in construction and do anticipate starting sometime in the summer. Once they start, then the timeframe is no longer matters because they're under construction. But they have had a delay in the start of their construction. And so what's before you tonight is essentially a renewal of that water commitment allocation. And to answer Vice Mayor McKenna's question, this is not a freebie. When folks come in to renew a water commitment, new commitment fees are assessed. So they have to apply, they have to submit an application again for that renewal, and those, whatever fees that are in place whenever that is being renewed, those apply. And so I think that was one question that I heard. I don't know about Mr. Naples.
So I think it is maybe bigger questions for how we handle. So in this, and you're gonna have to, I've read it and trying to get my head around it, and I missed the sidewalks earlier, so I'll probably miss something here too. What did they pay in real money? What did they pay us to hold this water commitment for 2 years? How much money did they pay the town?
I mean, we have to look back
I mean,
through the.
or what are the commitments?
So the commitment fees, it's essentially, and I don't think these have changed very much, if any, over the last few years, but so a 73 lot subdivision, I think I'm saying 73.
Yeah, it's 73.
73 times 35.
Okay.
So about $2,500 by way of commitment fee. They also pay their $100 application fee. That may have been $35 at the time that they originally made the application in 2020. I think that fee has changed a little bit.
Because that's what I saw on page 24 is $35. So let's go back to the 73 times 35. Just, you're gonna have to educate me now. So they're gonna spend 35, so if I did a single family home, the fee is 30 or whatever it is, so we have our structure, so they write a check for $2,500 approximately.
Yes.
With that application, and that, we get that just goes into our water with our fee schedule to help pay for what we had talked about numerous times of the existing infrastructure and all of our fee schedules that are related to water to help pay for that.
Right.
And then, do they get that back?
No,
No,
because
right,
it's a
right.
reservation.
Right.
It's a reservation. We're pulling that out and can't sell
Gotcha.
that water during that
Exactly,
year.
and that gets to the point of our multiple conversations we've had where Dale stands up and goes, it's committed, and it's this gosh darn 400 gallons a day, which isn't reality, but it's tying up, putting us at risk with the state that we're gonna be in violation. So I think, do they automatically get does our code say they get 1 year?
1 year.
So they get 1 year. So then after that, so now are you telling me they've written another check? They're gonna write another check for $2,500 more dollars plus 100 plus 35? Or are they paying $35?
They're paying $100,
Okay.
and they should be paying a new commitment fee of the $2,500.
I'm confused. That's what I'm saying. Pull up, and I get the sidewalks wrong, so you'll have to forgive me tonight. Page 24. I can't find in this $2,500. I find $35.
So I think that was the application fee.
And so it's not 100. I mean,
And I think-
this is dated now. This isn't from then.
And I think that there was do you want to address that, Mr. Reynolds?
Good evening. Yes, when the applicant submitted the application for grant, it's on page 23, he pulled out an old form. All the text is the same, but had the $35 at the bottom. So that's what he paid. He still owes us $6,500.
But where's the $2,500?
The $2,500 is in the current fee schedule. And when you as a board vote to give him the commitment of his water, that's when he pays that $2,500.
Perfectly fine. Right, that's,
Yeah, so there are three, as we talked internally with staff today, there are three different times that money is collected. One, application. That application fee is submitted with the paperwork so that it pays staff to analyze it.
so that's the $100.
That's the $100.
Okay.
We don't know what y'all are gonna do. So if you commit, if you're not gonna grant the commitment, there's no fee paid.
Agreed, totally understandable.
So if the fee, if you grant that application, then that's when that commitment fee is owed. There's a little bit of the code is unclear as far as when that fee should be paid. But my recommendation is that if they don't pay it within 60 days, then it's gonna be subject to revocation.
7 days.
Send it back to y'all and revoke the commitment.
And
I'm sorry, the third time that money is collected on these is at the end, when it's done, that they're ready to turn the water on, they do their system development fee, collect the tap fee, and any account setup fee deposits.
Thank you, Dale. What I was looking for was this reservation, because that's been our consternation. Our consternation is, we have too many projects in the queue, and if they don't ever come on board, so for 2 years, we've held out in our, which we'll go over in a little bit, whatever, 29,200 gallons, right? That legally, that's what we have to do, right? Because we committed to it. It's going against our usage threshold. So we can discuss later at other meetings, and I know you guys did a really good job at when we raised fees, right? Because there's state laws on tap fees and
prior to a year or two ago, we were paying very little, and you guys brought to our attention, we weren't anywhere near what our peers were doing. Right, so it'll be the same thing. I think we could bring that up to go, is this fee for 73, is 2,500 really enough to get somebody moving? Because they're hurting us. It hurts us. Oh my God, we're running out of water. No, we're not. They've taken 3 years to figure out what they want to do. So there's minus 29,200. So if we're going to treat it in our right hand, oh my God, what are we going to do? $2,500 for developers for 7,300. That's chump change. It should be $25,000 to hold our water commitment, but that's for another conversation. So thank you.
Or if they extend it or let it lapse and come back, should it be a higher fee schedule at that point? In other words, some incentive to keep on your original schedule, should that be in play or not?
Yeah, and
all good parts, good conversations. I will tell you, and I laugh about this, I've had chapter 30, which is your utility chapter, on my mind for many years. And it needs to be updated. Our policies and practices with regard to how we handle these things need to be updated. And we just, it's on the list, we just haven't gotten to it. But it is something that staff is actively wanting to address and hopes to.
Yeah, I think the other side of it is let's protect staff's time and energy, because if you're handling the same project several times over 3 years, are we covering our costs? It's an opportunity cost. They could be doing other things too.
I mean, one variable in there is 1 year, is that enough?
Right.
Is that enough time for them to get?
Probably not.
Get started, and so that's.
Right.
Obviously, when you have COVID happen in the middle of it, that may not be an adequate time. So it sounds like there's some good questions been raised about how do we maybe modify our policies around these type of issues. So, and chapter 30, I didn't know it was called chapter 30, but now I'm familiar with chapter 30. So maybe we need to review the provisions of chapter 30.
well, I make a motion, we accept their request. My goal was never not to give them their water extension. It was to understand it, so.
Any discussion around the motion on the table? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next up is item D2, resolution supporting local control of school calendars as requested by the school superintendent. And can you give us an update on that, one of you? Take your pick.
Certainly, the Board of Education, well, it's actually the Superintendent Jackson, who was at your 2 meetings ago, I guess, sent this over to us as well as all the other municipalities in the county, basically requesting that we pass a simple resolution in support of them having local say over their calendar, the school calendar. I thought it would be a positive issue to bring forward to you, because this council often talks about having local control and having local control over issues that sometimes the state general assembly and our legislatures get involved in, and folks down east get involved in, and really don't think about allowing local control. So we put this on the agenda for you to consider. It's my understanding that at least 3 of the municipalities in the county have already approved a resolution very similar to what you have here that staff has drafted.
And if I remember the history correctly, this happened a few years ago in the General Assembly at the behest of the hotel lobbies for some of the coastal counties, wanted to keep kids at the beach where they were spending money as opposed to going to school. So they got the General Assembly to pass a law that restricted school systems across the states. And camps, right. So that's where this ordinance originated.
Well, it's a resolution. It's like writing your congressman. There's no teeth in it. And why I asked to pull it off the calendar is because that was the first I heard of it. So I didn't want to, I figured, so we go, yeah, what we're going to say is we're all in favor of it by it being on the consent agenda.
That was the assumption.
Right, you know what?
I
Yeah, you know that, right?
I'm aware. But I've also heard this town council say a number of times that, You are for local control, and you're tired of Raleigh telling us what to do.
Yeah,
in the
I've never
West,
said that.
and,
I've never said that. I
so-
like Raleigh.
So,
I'm the lone Republican,
so,
so, you know.
that is why it was on consent. Obviously, you don't have to approve it, and it's probably not.
It's gonna get,
I think
it's gonna get approved, okay?
And the thing
But yeah.
is, but you're right, it's just adding one extra number of support to the school board's
Absolutely.
resolution.
Well, and the only other comment I had on it, or reaction was, and I'm not a parent anymore with kids in school, but if there is some reason to defer to the state and parents might have that opinion, are we giving them a venue or are we just speaking for them? And I may be all wet on that, don't know. Plus, the obvious thing that the county's already spoken, they don't really need our support. We're kind of piling on basically, which is fine.
Well, so I think another way to look at that is the Buncombe County Board of Education covers Weaverville too.
That's right.
Right,
Absolutely.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
We had to help them with our SRO because the county wouldn't. It doesn't mean we don't want to support the schools. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I have some, not a reservation, but it's kind of sprung upon us, so maybe wanting a little more time to digest. Having had kids in the school system, both public schools in North Buncombe, public charter schools, different calendars, different schedules, and then also having kids that were in high school, public high school, but also taking AV Tech courses, the scheduling is just very complicated. And I'm wondering if, I'm not opposed to local control necessarily, but are we muddying the waters in something that's already a complex machine that probably, public system functions at a different speed than everything, like private sector, and are we just muddying the waters and making it more complicated by, I don't know. So I feel like I need more time to think through.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
One of the warehouses on page 28, I guess, or 29, says that the school calendar law does not align with community college and university calendars, and how this would make the school calendar in the university, and that would align. And one of the problems with that is students who want to start, for instance, at AV Tech in January can't because they haven't taken the funds yet in high school.
Yes, and you can see I didn't get to read through this very well, so thank you for bringing it to my attention. I think it's very helpful.
I thought that was one of the most helpful parts in there.
So are you saying that that's a problem?
No, I'm not saying it's a problem. I'm saying it's just aligning the school calendars with the junior college and the university calendars, and that is a positive thing.
Yeah, that does definitely make sense to me.
Everybody's on the
Personal
same calendar.
experience.
Any other questions? Does anyone want to put forth a motion to pass this resolution?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
No.
No,
5-2, motion passes. Thank you. Next item is item 7E, consideration of cell tower proposals. And Town Manager Coffey, what new news do you have for us?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Gonna drill down to the bottom line on this one. October of last year, we received a proposal from US Cellular for an increased amount over what they had previously proposed to us a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago, I guess, for a perpetual lease agreement to total $325,000. This is on page 97 of your agenda items. Roughly $326,000. That would take the place of the current annual lease that we have, which is $22,251. Since that time, we have talked to another company. I consider similar, like a broker type company, who has offered $380,000 for the lease of a 99-year lease of the tower. So you have a range of options. You can obviously do nothing and continue as we are, receiving the $22,251 annually with US Cellular. You can choose to renegotiate with US Cellular and ask them for more. We can choose to direct me to renegotiate with TowerPoint and ask them for more. Your options are endless here. I really have no very strong opinion on this property. This is one of those, I feel like we have talked about at least twice a year for about 10 years.
Right.
And so far, we've done nothing, so.
So with the new proposal, would it be the same physical layout and
Yes.
access and all that, just more money? Yeah.
And it's phrased in terms of a 99-year lease as opposed to a perpetual easement that does not ever end.
Okay.
Both scenarios, though, have or will have abandonment issues or abandonment clauses in it, which means that they
Most of us have those.
Yeah.
A lot of us do have those.
Yeah.
abandonment clauses, which means that those end if the tower ceases to be used.
Yeah.
I just have a thought. It seems like when they come in, each time they change, they raise what they were to pay. I would be very much against have a 99-year or perpetual lease forever, because apparently this is becoming quite popular in the need for cell towers. So whatever fee we decide on, I'd be fine, but I wouldn't want to commit myself forever on a thing.
I frankly would not be surprised if we had another proposal in 2 months.
I wouldn't be.
So just so you know, this is not, the 380 is not from US Cellular, Doug.
That's correct.
That's right.
So they haven't countered when she said no. This is a new company.
Correct.
So, did anybody read my email?
Yes.
Okay. What if we made, something for Selena that says, you don't have to bring these offers to us every other month unless they offer us $1 million.
Sounds good to me.
Because it's a pain for her, it's a pain for us, and the truth is, they love that location, they want to keep that location, that's why they want to get it for 99 years. So,
99 years is too long.
well, and the thing is, I've talked to several experts, specialists, and because we all have cell phones and we all love them so much, and then we end up buying them for our kids and they love them so much, most people don't see cell towers going away in our lifetime. So I think that getting the monthly, yearly fee is pretty cool.
Any other comments or anyone
Well,
suggest any action to take?
Well, and I guess you could apply, the cost of money to that or the value of having it in hand. I mean, I don't know what that break point is, where does it make sense to have a lump sum versus not?
And I think that if we needed the money, if we
Right.
were a town that needed this money to pay off our debt, then we would probably be looking at it from a totally different way.
So if I'm not hearing any motion, I assume we're doing nothing. Is that correct? Not so. Okay, we're not doing anything. Great. Item 7F, water system update from town manager.
Okay, so page 12, actually, you're listed as starting with 1.
I am.
That's okay.
So let's see if I,
Page 12?
well,
I'm
page
sorry.
112, 112. So,
It'll be a long night.
God, you're going backwards?
so if you'll recall, some questions were raised after our last conversation about this. Jeff had asked several questions, and the staff have put together a nice colorful chart that answers those questions, which shows a variety of things about which projects are counted on commitments, which are not, when they are, and a graph that appears on page 160 that shows you when we would reach the critical points. I hope everyone's had a chance to review that and ask if there's any additional questions that people have. I would remind you that we have had, I think we have done our due diligence on this project. We have now completed, or near completed, we have a couple of line items left on the recommendations I made to you all last year with regard to our water system. We have now completed a reliable river yield study, and now we've produced this graph here addressing subsequent questions. Knowing all that, what other questions around this issue do you all have?
The format, I was telling Selena before the meeting, I think is great. And regardless of what we do tonight or a month from now or a year from now, I think this would be a really good template to just on a quarterly basis, have them update and say, here's what our capacity looks like against projects that are coming online. So I really like this and thank you for doing it. In the growth areas that 1 through 5, what are the ones that could conceivably go to another water utility, like a Woodfin, where we're not the only player?
And so you try to push off on me, now come on.
I'm sorry.
So I think in growth area, particularly in growth area 1, actually probably the answer for all of these is, we can't answer that a total answer. But in growth area 1, we've already seen one developer who's basically offered to lay line at their expense to the town of Woodfin, or not to the town, excuse me, to the Woodfin Water District to get water from them, and they agreed. So I think wherever Woodfin Water approaches development, that could happen again. And that would certainly be everything in growth area 1 and probably growth area 2. In the other growth areas, other available systems are less available. But if it was a development that could be built on the use of wells, then they could certainly do that. But I don't think there's any other current water systems other than Woodfin that would be, available to developers.
Yeah, so the reason I brought that up, if you're, this isn't a perfect science, of course, looking ahead, but if those two growth areas have about 551,000 gallons, so if you follow that and they go a different route, you'd back that out of the totals on the other end.
I feel that it's important to state for you that these are projections based
Sure.
on estimates. And
Correct.
nobody knows what the future's gonna hold, but trying to be responsive to what does sort of a low, medium, high growth look like in terms of water capacity, which was not the document that we presented you last meeting.
Right.
This is really staff's best stab at this.
Which, yeah, and we appreciate it. It's a lot of work. So, I don't know, line BB, 1,794,600 really isn't that. It's 310. It's just what it is. It's math. I'm not going to keep using the state's 400 gallons. It's absurd. So I took out growth area 1 and 2 and divided by 4. So our average consumer uses 120 or whatever. We know that. We know what our average residential people use. We don't have this apartments are 70, I think. I can't always remember the numbers, but it's not 400. So if we take that out and go, okay, it's 310. And I appreciate LL. So LL, I know we always put Dale on the spot. So 685 is if I'm reading your footnotes, that's footnoted, God, my eyes are on that, XII, right? So current daily raw water withdrawal rate based on the average withdrawal, right?
From calendar year 2022.
Yep. So it took the whole year into average 685 out of and you've got our capacity, so.
So I'd also just like to update folks that, we've been pursuing getting a state allocation to help build a water plant expansion with the cooperation of the governments in Madison County. I can tell you that since we last spoke, we have had, for some reason, difficulty in getting a response from the town of Marshall. However, the town of Marshall and the county of Madison are both in favor of the proposals that we've sent them. So we're going to be pursuing that with or without the town marshal. And just to let you know, if we should get the state right now has a lot of excess funds, and we know that some of that funds are going to be designated for infrastructure projects such as these. So we will be pursuing funding for our plant expansion. And if we should be so lucky as to get a state allocation, then we will have to make a decision, hopefully pretty soon, based on the money that they might allocate. But anyway, so we will be pursuing those funding opportunities as you've known about for some time, so.
Yeah, I mean, kind of excuse me, the way I'm kind of looking at it after all the time we put in after the last year or so is that one thing I know now that I didn't know a year ago, at least for me, is that it makes sense at some point to expand that facility and that we could responsibly do it. But the real question is not so much to me if, it's when. And the when could be when we hit that 80% threshold. Like you show on your chart, it could be 3 years from now. It could be 13 years from now. We really don't know. But given the fact that we don't have any outside funding, if we were to do something today, it would be all loan-based and all on us. And I would struggle to say, yeah, we ought to move ahead like right now, given that, because that would be all on the water users. And also don't want to make this a month-to-month kind of scenario for staff where 1 month we could change it. I kind of like to look in terms of fiscal years. So I'm almost thinking, and this is just a thought, that we assume that based on all this data, we would not be moving ahead in the coming budget year, but that we should pursue funding because we will be moving ahead. And if that funding would materialize in this budget year, and that could change the whole situation, that would be a good thing. But if it didn't, otherwise, I'm kind of looking at it like we're revisiting next budget year. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think that's too far out. So we do know, as Patrick said, that North Carolina has announced that they have $3 billion of surplus money. And I ran into somebody who is important in that area, and he said, send me this and let me look at it. And I have not sent because I wanted to talk to council about it first. I think that authorizing expansion or provide specific direction, I would love to see us push this forward to North Carolina now for the surplus money. Because as we have seen this, and I love all this data because I'm a very data-oriented person, and to see where the lines cross at if it was high growth versus moderate growth versus, let's pretend we're not going to grow at all. But between the year 2010 and 2020, Weaverville actually grew 46%. We grew by 1,440 people, and it's already, I'm sure, grown by another 1,000 people just in these 2 years. It's kind of crazy. Patrick and I were talking about that. I also did some research on this CDM Smith company that did our water resiliency, and I was very impressed to find out exactly who they were. Because people are asking that question, who did you use and why did you use them? And so I think it's fair for the public to know, and of course all of us to know, that this company's been in business for 75 years. They are an international company of over 5,000 employees. And after speaking with John Boyer, who actually did our report, he has been with the company 27 years, and he's an environmental engineering consultant focused on water resource planning. Because I always look at the past before I look at the future, I think it's the jobs that I've had in my lifetime. My funny thing was, let me look at my crystal ball, but 67 years of data is, let's see, 24,455 days worth of data. for us to come up with one day in August of 2008 that the flow would have been too low. I also looked at our populations from 1930 until now. And we continue to grow because I've heard you say this, Jeff, before. It's a beautiful place and who wouldn't want to live here? I think we're going to continue to have more and more people come and want to live here. And so this council has adopted more than once the resolution that we would move forward. I understand maybe not going forward with the complete authorization, but I do think we should move forward with some direction for the staff to continue to seek funding in every possible direction, but not wait a year. Just continue telling us, because one day, I have my fingers crossed, it's gonna come up, yes.
So I think, excuse me, I think we're saying the same thing, and if I misspoke, I wasn't suggesting we sit out and don't look for anything for a year. We'd go look for funding, but don't build it into our project until such time as that gets clarified. Because if we're doing it all on our own dollar or loans, that's what I was trying to avoid. But yeah, go look for money.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing you say is that we want to direct the staff to put together a financing plan for the water plant expansion, which would include examining possibility of getting some state funds, what a USDA loan would cost and what the provisions that are, as well as whether possible bank funding. Does that sound accurate for what I'm hearing?
That makes sense to me.
We actually did that for you.
I thought so.
Meeting
Twice.
before last. One of the things that I would caution us at, would be at this point in time, would be to give direction that is that broad when we need to look at our water rate study as part of the budget.
What did we just get turned down for?
Generators.
The resilient,
Money, water money.
Drinking water state revolving fund
Right.
money.
Okay, so-
For the generators and.
Yeah,
And
so
for the
there, no offense, Kevin, there may be $35 million available. They said, no.
No,
You
but
don't get it.
just a minute, Andrew. That was based on a DEQ formula. We're talking about a legislative allocation, which is up to $15 million. So
And they're gonna say yes,
they might,
and they might not.
they may not.
Because because they're Republicans, are gonna say, no, we really didn't get it.
That's a real possibility, sir.
Well, then if you're a Republican and they're a Republican.
Maybe you should do the asking.
Because from day one, I said, we don't need the water.
We do need the water.
Math, do the math.
You're telling.
So this is coming to a head, folks. So is there any direction to take action tonight? And if there's not, I will pursue the funding possibilities with the state. And they are on the same budget schedule we are, so they'll be making those decisions within the next month or two, and we're going to have to come to some conclusion here, folks, so.
When did you think that the answer of the funding would be coming forward?
Well, they're on the same budget cycle we are, so they have to make their budgets during the spring and then finalize their budget by the end of June.
Look, the staff did great, and that's, we can afford it. Let's not jump around, right? That's math again. They did a great job. We can afford it. That's never been in question in my mind. I don't believe we need it. So, the question is, when are we gonna need it? So we've had conversations with several of you about when we're gonna need it, whether it's now or 20 years from now. So if it's 20 years from now, do you buy it now? I mean, we were told expenses are gonna go nothing but up. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I don't have a crystal ball. So is it gonna cost more to make compared to the GDP? I don't know, but we have the money. So if that's what's holding you back, don't let it hold you back, because we have the money and the staff showed it to us. What'd you say, twice?
Right.
Right. And we have to borrow the money. We borrowed the money to do the loop, right?
Right.
Okay, so it's a tough decision, and that's, whatever we decide, generations are gonna be affected, right? So this, we don't have to be, I can just be a smart aleck. I don't have to be smart, right? You get voted into office not for your skill set. Public office is a bizarre place to be. It's a popularity contest. So
we get charged with making decisions that are way above our pay grade.
But can I ask you to tell me what you see on that chart? Because I realize that we
I don't-
all see different things.
I don't see a chart starting in this year. See, I would like to see data. I don't need to see any more data because I've already made my mind up. And we can manipulate data. You've been, like you point out, you know, we're in the business world. I've been in the business world. I can take data and make it be what I want it to be if I've already got my decision made. So if I was on the team of, yeah, let's build it, I would show you data every which way to get the end result I'm looking for. So I don't so I wore my shirt, "You can, man," because I was a smart aleck last month. We can't stop development. Yeah, we can. We can slow it down, okay? This council has chosen not to slow it down. We're accelerating at a warp speed. That's our choice. If we're going to continue to do that, I'll agree with you, Catherine, we're going to need water. If we're going to keep growing at the rate this council has approved developments, I agree with you. So
I want to say that I think that using the availability of water as a brake for development is foolhardy. It's not going to stop development as much as you might want to use it for that purpose. We need to make this decision based on the data we have and what we know, what we expect to happen in our community and our region. We can't pretend that not providing water is going to stop development. There's other sources of water besides us.
I'm not pretending anything. I mean, so you're implying I'm pretending things?
No, I'm implying that you're suggesting that not having water capacity is going to put a brake on development area, and I think that's a false assumption. Well, we can see right now the biggest development we have on the biggest development around right now is getting water from a neighboring source.
And the guy told you they wouldn't sell it to him. The previous Woodfin guy, we sat in a public meeting and you said to me, they're not going to sell him water.
We know what
Yeah.
what they said. All right,
Which is sad.
that's enough. What we said was, I'm claiming that I did not lie to you at all. I said was, when I approached them, they had already approved a conditional approval for providing this development. They have agreed since then to consider having, not to do that any longer, but they'd already given this particular developer a conditional approval before we ever got to making a request.
I'm aware of that, and I didn't say you lied to me.
Okay.
I said, you said, and we can bicker for 6 hours.
Yeah, but let's not.
Well, you know, in terms of timing, to your point, Catherine, about how do we look at things, I look at this chart, the page 116 that Selena put together. So if I take at face value, everything happens, all those developments happen. And what we're saying there is under moderate growth that come 2025, we're going to be bumping up against that 80% threshold where you have to have a plan in place. Well, that's 2 years from now. So what I'm saying is, and that assumes all that happens, by the way, which it probably won't. But if it does, that's telling me we don't necessarily have to do something right now, especially unless, hey, if somebody were throwing grants and money at us, I'd say, hell yeah, let's do it yesterday. That's not the case, unfortunately. To me, that's got to be our priority. We got a solid plan in place. We know we're going to need it someday. Now let's go get some partner funding to help offset. That should be the big priority rather than pushing the go button.
Well,
But that's just me.
the other thing I'd like to mention is the fact that we know how the price of expanding the water plant is going to continue to go up.
We don't know that.
Well,
You
I
just
think
said that. Nobody knows.
I think history proves it.
Well, maybe.
Well, and we know it's going to take 5 or 6 years to get a plan in, of what we've talked. And we know that some of the outside people that we might try to do regional it's becoming more limited. So I think we should consider, that we won't have water available until a number of years. And by having, we're gonna have to be independent of ourselves. We can't be contingent on Woodfin or someone else to supply us water.
Right.
But I'm saying, we've got to look longer term. We can't look at this year, next year. We've discussed this thing, we've gone in and out and everything, so if we're gonna say, well, we'll expand it if we get funding, or if we don't get funding, I think we gotta do it independently of that. We gotta look at our future. And most of us won't be on council by the time a plant would be approved. because the timing and so forth indicates it. So I think we need to look at the same from an objective standpoint and decide whether or not we want to expand it or not. We've studied it to death, and it's just a matter of timing, and I really honestly don't believe that it should be contingent on funding, because we may be waiting around. If we get it, that's a bonus.
I agree 100% with you. Let's put our money where our mouth is and vote on the darn thing. You know, we voted on it wrongly back in 2017. Thank God it doubled, it delayed everything. Probably cost us now $1 million in September when we said stop. So let's do it. Somebody paid a motion on the table. And let's put our money where our mouth is.
Okay then, money where your mouth is. I would like to put a motion on the table that we authorize staff to expand the water treatment plant and to seek funding and ways to finance if there is no grants.
Any discussion on the motion on the table?
Are you open to adding a date to that? Like if there's no funding by X date, then we're moving ahead with, because that feels a little open-ended.
Okay, if there's no funding available,
First of July.
I would say 6 months from now.
Well, the state budget should be, and it's supposed to be set by June, so we should know if we're gonna get any outside funding by the end of June.
But if we gave ourselves 6 months, then that gives us time to know for sure, see what the interest rates are, know who our loan's gonna be with. Because the way I look at this, and I gotta stand up to show it to you. If this is low, and this is now, nothing happens till next year anyway. And then you get shovel in the ground, bulldozers, however you want to look at it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're not gonna have anything even on, thinking about being online till here. And that's this point anyway. The other thing that I look at when I look at graphs like this is we have said repeatedly, I remember Trent said that the basin needed to be relined. And then I've also been told over the last year that that can't happen until the expansion. So I remember asking this question a year ago, you know, even if we just built a basin so that we knew we were safe. I think we're putting ourselves at risk by having a basin that needs to be lined. It's not being lined. We keep talking about the plant. And I'm looking at 5 to 7 years before we get that mirror image anyway. So I would be willing to add 6 months to that, Jeff.
So let me ask you if we can restate the motion. The motion is to authorize the expansion of the water plant with no action other than seeking funding for the next 6 months. Is that correct?
That's not what I heard.
Well, then obviously we didn't hear correctly. So would you state it again?
I said authorize staff to move forward with the expansion of the water treatment plant and to continue to look for funding and bring us also back the cost of the interest rate that it would be on the loan. And then Jeff asked, would I be willing to add a time frame on that?
Right.
And I said, I'd be willing to look for funding grant type things for 6 months, because you said if we could get any of this $30 billion from North Carolina, then we should know within 6 months.
Right. And if you don't get the funding, you're saying, yes, do it. I mean, that was my challenge.
Yes.
Or I'd make the motion myself. You're going to build it, the vote is to build it either way, with or without state money.
Yes.
Yes. Any other discussion on this motion on the table?
I'd like to hear the motion that you made, and I'd like to hear the one that you suggested a minute ago.
Which I thought were the same, actually, but apparently I didn't state it correctly. Jennifer, would you restate it? Tell us what we said, Jennifer.
You build it.
So let's together, make sure that the motion reads correctly. I heard motion to authorize staff to move forward and expand the water treatment plant and seek outside funding over the next 6 months so that a funding plan can be put into place. And the plan, and if no outside funding is found, that the town, within 6 months, the town will proceed on its own.
And you would tell us what the interest rate was.
With that-
Just payment, structure plan, et cetera, and how would that,
Essentially, a funding plan with and without outside funding.
yes.
Is that close?
Question, when you say outside funding, you come grants?
Yes.
Yes.
Any funding, we would essentially put what we've been kind of using as our.
But you got the USDA loan that you already know about. I think that's,
Right.
you're talking about in it, I mean, we can't pay, all right, so when I said we could afford it, I don't think we have the cash. Right.
Right.
When I said we could afford it, it was based on your guys' presentation, which showed the loans and showed our cash and our capital. Where are you gonna put where are we putting the 1.2 million that we gotta decide by? What's the deadline on that?
We're gonna talk about that next.
Okay, good.
Next month.
Next month?
Actually, if we're talking resiliency, it could be next.
Yes.
Okay, let's stay focused on the current agenda. So are there any more questions about the motion on the table? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no.
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 5-2, the motion passes. Thank you very much, after several years.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next item is 7G, Water System Resiliency Projects. And let's see, Selena, you're up for this one.
What page is that?
Okay, which,
What we're on.
page 117.
Thank you.
So in January 24th of 2022, Town Council authorized a resolution that you have on there on page 18 to move forward with the resiliency project. To include 2 backup generators, one at the plant and one at the raw water intake, and then a conversion project to convert from chlorine gas to sodium hydrochloride. As you are aware, we did not receive the funds from the state's drinking water state revolving fund for the 2 projects. We submitted the resiliency separate from the expansion. We did not receive funding for either one of those. Weaverville has already done a good amount of work as far as the engineering for the resiliency projects. At this point in time, because we have been told that we have not received the state funds for the second application, we feel it's appropriate to go ahead and bring it back to you. Now, this is in the budget already, so the 1.294 is in the budget already. It's in the budget. So that the ARP money is separate.
Right, the expenses in the budget.
Right.
Right.
And you asked me to not push using the ARP money because we thought we were gonna get the grant and
Right.
we didn't get the grant.
No, that's right. So tonight we are coming to you to ask for your vote, your approval to move forward with the resiliency plan, which means approving the engineering agreement and moving forward.
It basically means spending $1.2 million on generators. Yes. And I would suggest that one thing that's changed since we started this idea was that we have worked with other water systems, Mars Hill, Woodfin, and Asheville, and now we have built in resiliency by the fact that if we had emergency, we now have backup water systems we didn't have before when we were pushing for the generators. I would also suggest that the plant has been online now for 30 years, and there's not one day in that 30 years we've actually turned on a generator. I think generators are a very expensive resiliency system that's less necessary now than it once was before. I suggest we did not expend money on this. That we direct our
What about
money
the
instead
chlorine?
towards the expansion of the water project.
What about the chlorine? Aren't they lumped together? They're not separate.
Seems like the chlorine is a major health safety concern, and that should be a priority.
Right, over generators.
Over generators, yes.
Right, but they're lumped together. You're gonna have to separate them out, right?
Separate them out.
I'm not sure how that would work, Mr. Pennell, if you and or Randall would come to the podium and let's get some questions answered.
Let me ask you a quick question while they're coming to the podium. When is our deadline to allocate the ARP money?
2026.
No, to allocate it, not spend it. Thank you.
So we have a year and a half.
So I will say, just to clarify, the two projects, the generator projects and the chlorine gas conversion were lumped together for grant purposes
Correct.
and for the engineer.
Right.
I think you can do one without the other. But I will also say that all of these projects were in the original expansion. But all they did, this isn't new, these are not new projects. We broke them out to do them more quickly.
Go ahead.
Good evening again. Exactly what do you want me to do?
Let me sit and tell you.
So they're suggesting that the chlorine project cannot be done without the generators. Am I
No,
correct?
no.
Okay, then
You said, I don't think you realized they were lumped together because you're like, we don't need to do it. And I was just pointing out they're together. But Jennifer just pointed out, we don't need to do it. You guys just passed. We don't need to do anything. It's what you just said.
Unless.
Part of the expansion included this.
Correct.
And we just approved the expansion.
Except that if you go forward, we've been hearing very consistently from town council that you want to do these resiliency projects as soon as possible. I mean, that's back from January of 2022, and I know several of you have said, where are we with these resiliency projects? Because I think there was some bit of urgency in that. And if you proceed with this ahead of time, you get it done by October timeframe, it doesn't impede the work if at whatever point the water treatment plant goes forward.
Okay, so with the water treatment expansion project and the resilient project are two separate projects. They might have been, in your mind, they'd existed together, but they can be separated easily here. And the reality is the difference between when we first set these resiliency projects, where we didn't have the resilience of having backup systems from Woodfin and Mars Hill.
So your question to them is, how much is the chlorine thing, and you don't want generators? is what
You
I
got
heard.
it.
Yeah.
You got it. So generators are very expensive projects, very expensive products that become obsolete very quickly.
Mr. Pennell. Respond to whatever you would like.
You're right.
Beg to differ.
Well, of course you do, because of your job, sir. But how many times have we turned that generator on in the past 30 years?
I'm not sure that statement's true. Our water treatment plant has truly been in operation since the early 2000s, late 1990s. And it's sort of like car insurance. Just because I've never had a wreck, doesn't mean I'm not going to have one tonight going home. But I'm not going to cancel my insurance because I haven't had a wreck for the last 40 years. I really wish you'd strongly consider the generators.
And I hear what you're about to say. Your insurance doesn't cost $1.2 million.
We do have an agreement with Mars Hill. Maybe for 100,000 gallons a day that they could send to us. If our plant does not have power, we're currently withdrawing from the river 685,000 a day to supply our daily needs. If we can only get 100,000 from Mars Hill, they only have 800,000 for their entire system, and that doesn't include their growth that's expanding. The 100,000 gallons is not going to keep our tank, even the Hammer Mountain, full. We're meeting tomorrow with Woodfin Water to meet their new director and try to jumpstart the conversations with them. But it's years, maybe 2, before something will actually be online with Woodford. After they do their hydraulic modeling and they go before their board and their new director sees what he wants to see. And we've already ruled out asphalt totally as far as being an additional source. Woodford, we're thinking is in 125 to 150,000 gallons a day. So if we lose power for whatever reason, both Woodford and Marseille sending water to us is not going to come anywhere near what our daily needs are, whether you figure 400 or 100. But just under current usage, that 685,000 that you're pumping from the plant, after you withdraw from that, what we need at the plant to produce the water, and what we lose through unaccounted for water, and what we use from a pound standpoint in terms of the needs that we have for flushing lines and fighting fires and testing hydrants and when we have leaks and all those things. We send about 500,000 gallons of water to town every day. So if we need 500,000 gallons today, and the best we might be able to get is 100,000, maybe 150, our citizens are going to be shortchanged by not having enough water. The generators allow us to be independent from weather, independent from terrorism, independent from any needs, and maybe put us in a position to be able to help our neighbors if there's a situation like that. And the state, in past years, doing our annual inspection on our water plant, has said, you are the only water system. Is it in Buncombe County or Western North Carolina? Western North Carolina. We are the only water system that does not have generators at its water plant. And they put that in multiple annual inspection reports for us. They didn't on their last inspection report because we had a town council resolution that said proceed with the generators. So I just wanted to let you know that I've lived in Weaverville since 1965. And I've been working on town infrastructure since 1976. I worked for the town engineer at that time. Of everything that I've seen, this is the one thing that we need more than what's other things in my story, but.
So the irony.
So of the
Go
one,
ahead.
of the 1.2, what's the percentage that's generators? Do we know? Or am I missing something? This is 1.2 is the whole project, right?
Yeah.
Roughly 1.3 million, and
Okay.
that was a budgeted figure. We don't have bids, and so that figure can change. But I don't know what the percentage of that was allocated to generators versus the chlorine gas.
So we can make, because we've already budgeted.
Yes.
So we're, how do you, so we budgeted it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll make life easy and then we can move on to talk about, if you want to split, let's just vote on it. I make a motion to approve the engineering agreement.
Wait,
So the application of resiliency projects can continue.
Doug wanted to say something.
we're trying to.
Mr. Jackson.
Didn't you say the water plant expansion as we originally envisioned it was going to include the generators?
Yes.
Okay, so we just voted to go ahead and expand the water plant. So by paying for the generators now just means we go ahead and get them early of that project. So it'll just take it off what the total bill would have been anyways.
That's right.
So I don't see a problem. The other is, you may have told me this before, we have power down there from Duke and French. We do not?
French Broad.
We don't have.
Not do.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, it doesn't make any difference. Go ahead and get them now, and just take it off the price. We just have to take the money out now and take it away from what it would have cost.
Are there any other questions or comments on the motion on the floor?
Were you assuming going forward on the whole enchilada without generators? Like the
Why not?
expansion?
Yes,
They're
I think-
pointing out
yeah,
that,
Yeah, I think the generators are not a solution. I think we haven't had them for all these years. We've got this money, they could be better spent, I think. Now that we have other resiliency systems in place, and yes, we have the water from Mars Hill and the water from Woodfin, and the water from Woodfin could potentially actually include excess water from Asheville through their contract. So I just think that the generators have become much less of a resiliency item than they were when we started this project.
We might want to get emergency water, but if the power's out.
Yeah.
You can't pump it.
yeah,
then they'll-
resiliency and backup power are two different things. To your point.
We have a generator now, right?
No,
The one-
No.
We don't have it.
What's the one?
We have a very small generator at the water plant that runs the lights and the testing equipment and the heat in the building where its office is. But it won't run any of the operational equipment for the plant.
So what's the generator I heard, I think I heard you mention that we haven't used in 25 years.
Have we ever even had a generator that would do this? No. So the thing is,
So we have none, we never have.
that's right.
That's why we need them.
How long would it take to get, let's say we had a situation like a neighbor had recently, where they had a number of people that were without water. If we were in a situation where we were without water for those areas, like, as you mentioned, the Rams Creek Valley, Ox Creek, those areas, Hamburg Mountain, where we have to pump, how long would we be able to, how quickly could we get a generator in place?
I don't know that they make trailer mounted generators of the size we need to bring to the plant. But you still need to have a plug for there that you put the plant hooked into the generator.
Are there other questions regarding the motion on the floor? No? All in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Thank you. Next item is 7H, Water System Development Fee Study.
Okay, back in July 1st of 2018, Town Council put into place some water system development fees. That was pursuant to a law that was new at that time. And the requirements for that were to have a financial analysis to support those rates that you were putting into place. The law, as it read then and still reads, is that your rates have to be based on a study that is no older than 5 years old. I realize that was redundant. So we're up for, we needed a financial analysis. The town contracted with a company called Wildan Financial Services, who conducted the study, and they now have their draft report, which is included in your agenda packet. The current system development fee for a residential dwelling unit is $2,232. At the time, you elected to go pretty close to the maximum amount that was allowable in order to fully charge the fees that had been, or the costs that had been incurred to do the plant. So the draft that you're going to see includes, or will indicate, the maximum amount of system development fees that the town could charge, and this time they did it in 3 different methods. They did the buy-in method, which again recoups the costs that have already been incurred, and they're saying that the buy-in method yields a maximum of $2,750 per residential dwelling unit, so up just about $500 per dwelling unit. They also analyzed incremental or marginal cost, and what that does is it, instead of looking backwards, it looks forward. And so with a capital improvement plan that it projects out 10 years, they've taken a look at those potential expenses. And I will say it does include a water treatment plant expansion in it. And so that cost method ends up with $5,430 per residential unit. When you combine the two, there are certain percentages there, and when you combine the two, it's $4,090 per residential unit. We're not asking you to adopt anything today. You cannot do that until after a 45-day public comment period has been put in place to allow full opportunity for the public to weigh in on this. What I propose is that a public comment period be from March 1st, which is Wednesday, through April 24th, and then a public hearing be set for April 24th. That's your regular town council meeting in April. And that will allow Will Dan to assimilate all the public comments and present to you their final report at your May meeting, so that you are in a position to adopt the fees as a part of your fee schedule with your budget. So what I'm asking tonight is that you authorize the publishing of the Will Dan Water System Development Fee Report, that you set the public comment period from March 1st through April 24th, and set the public hearing on the system development fees for April 24th at 6.
So I don't think this really requires any action, just a nod head.
No, we need
You need a
votes
motion?
to
All right.
set these.
So we do need a motion. So is there, first of all, any questions of the attorney? No. Would someone care to make a motion to the effect that she just articulated?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next is item I, disposal of surplus personal property. And Selena, what do you know about this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. North Carolina General Statute sets our laws for you regarding the disposal of surplus property. That can be anything from desks and chairs to vehicles, to old garbage trucks, to sludge trucks, to whatever the case may be. Statute sets out in its policy, and it's in the statute, allows you to declare to permit the town official, in our case being the town manager, to authorize or declare surplus property up to the amount of $30,000 fair market value.
20.
30.
It says 20.
Well,
Statute allows 30.
Oh.
Yes, yeah.
You're only asking for 20.
So I'm only asking for 20. And less than that if you want it to be that way. Typically, we will bring to you gov deals where we've sold vehicles once a quarter maybe, and share with you what.
Have we ever told you no?
From gov deals. No.
Okay, stop talking, let's move on, it's getting late.
Move on, all right.
I make a motion, we accept it.
20,000.
Any
Yes.
discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next,
I'm sorry, was that the amending the ordinance or ratifying the?
Whatever you
recent
wanted.
It was all
statement?
of it. You said stop talking, so I say.
You're sold, you're sold. We've never said no to you, right?
A few times, Andrew, I mean.
Not on this.
okay, next up is item J, quarterly report from the fire department, and I believe we have Chief.
So
Is there two parts to that? The 20,000 we approved, and then it says to ratify the recent sale.
That's what I was asking, if that included
Oh, I see.
both parts, is where I was headed on that.
Andrew said yes, that's what it included.
Do we need to pause and
Revote again.
revote?
I make a motion that we ratify the recent sale of two surplus vehicles.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Good catch. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So done. Next up is item J, quarterly report from the fire department, and I believe that Fire Chief Harris is online.
Chief Harris was sent home today, and do not unmute yourself, he is not well, and does not even need to be online this evening, so you have his information. I can certainly bring him back to another meeting and have him speak to you, but trust me, you don't want to hear him speak.
Okay.
Has he been listening the whole time?
I think so.
I think that's why his picture's up there. Well, get well, sir. Next item is item K, quarterly report from Police Chief Davis.
Good luck, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
It's a feisty one tonight, man. Be careful.
Thank you. Okay, on this quarterly report I come to you, and with this report, as you can see, we had last year at this time, we had 1,417 calls for service. This year, we're looking at 1,614 calls, which is a 14% increase since the same period last year. That would be the third quarter in a row that we've gone double digits for calls for service. One of the things I felt was important to point out to you with the number of overdoses that we've had. We've had 34 in 2022. And when I say 34, let me see if the fire department numbers might be different. The EMS calls might be different. There's people who will give themselves self-administered Narcan. There's people that will, it will be reported as a negative call only, and won't be a police response to that. So those numbers might be different. But calls for service that I know the police department has gone to is 34. There were 3 overdose deaths in that. And there were 4 times when our officers administered Narcan themselves, and they weren't administered by EMS. They weren't administered by the fire department or self-administered. There's also twice this year so far where officers have administered Narcan. The reason I point that out is that it's a trend. The 2021 numbers are a little bit difficult to agree for a couple of reasons. One, we changed records management systems, as you know. Also that there was not a community paramedic program that Lincoln County has. So the reporting wasn't as unified in that time period. But I know that there was at least 1 death in 2021.
So when you say it's a trend, the trend is being...
I believe that trend is going up.
The number of overdoses.
And I think to point out, we've administered Narcan twice this year, as where there was administered 4 times in all of 2022 for the police department.
Do you think, and this is off the subject a little bit, but so Narcan is pretty readily available at this point. Do you think does that embolden people, or make people take risks they might not have take, that therefore increase the number of overdoses?
I can't speak to that. I just know that our officers are going to administer Narcan more. I think that is becoming more prevalent.
Is it, I think to maybe kind of what Patrick's headed, for sure, I've read some of that where people are pushing the envelope, but is this fentanyl driven?
Yes.
Right, so that you think you're doing cocaine, but you're not. You're doing cocaine with fentanyl in it.
You're exactly right. There's an identification problem with a lot of those drugs now. They're marketed as something else, and they're not. They're more lethal now than they have been. For an example, it might take 2 or 3 different doses of Narcan to achieve the same effect, get the person out of, depending on what the drug might be. We also had 31 arrests, so arrests were up from 19 the previous year. And our vehicle collisions were about the same. We're at 48 vehicle collisions, or at 49 vehicle collisions versus 48. On the next page, with our activity report, happy to report we didn't have any robberies or aggravated assaults, burglaries from the building, or thefts from the motor vehicle. We see a bunch of zeros that are going across those line items for this quarter. Those other numbers with the larcenies that we have are all consistent with the previous report. So what I'm saying is that our crime looks to be relatively flat, although our calls for service are going up.
What's crazy about crime, and then if you read the paper, you saw what happened at the BMW dealership, 7 minutes. And then my brother-in-law, I think they were in and out in 4 minutes. And they stole, what, $20,000 worth of equipment?
That's
In
correct.
4 minutes. And they were from out of town. And you guys, they caught, I think, at least one of the guys.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so it's just crazy with where we're headed, drug abuse and then crime, but in and out of general equipment room, 4 minutes based on and so the alarm went off, right? I mean, the alarm goes off.
It went off and worked as it was monitored by an independent system, which most systems are, and the police response was less than 4 minutes.
But they're already out of there.
And they were
Amazing.
Speaking of response times, it's on the next slide that we have. You can see, I've reported this many times, the high priority calls and the low priority calls, if you look, the numbers are pretty much the same. The calls that are the average priority calls, those are the calls that are going to take the most time and the most of our officers' time, I guess I should say. That number has gone up, and it's gone up about a full minute and a half. And that's a little disturbing to me, meaning it's taking our officers longer to get there, and it's taking longer to clear calls once they are there. We'll see if this is a trend or not, but it's taking us longer to go to those average priority calls. And we go on to the next slide. I'm happy to report that we just have a level 2 charger installed in the garage downstairs, and we are the first, that I know of, the first law enforcement entity in this region that has an electric vehicle. And we hope to get that updated to having a marked vehicle assigned to an ABC officer. And I would like to thank the ABC board for this vehicle and the funding that we received, because it's very meaningful to get something like that. So we hope to have that in the next couple of months and get it marketed as well.
So we got
Exciting stuff.
drinking's up, which got you a new car, overdoses are up, and break-ins are up.
But if we lose power, we've got a generator to recharge that car.
That's exactly right. And then finally, the bicycle program, I'd like to point that out. Been trying to get this up and running for some period of time now. But we were able to go ahead and get 2 bicycles. The training was a big issue, a big element of that, and policy and procedures surround that. The Asheville Police Department was hosting a bicycle class at AV Tech, and our officers completed a week-long training in that.
Excellent.
So I'm hoping that you'll be able to see them soon. There's many power miles to the trails and our park system in neighborhoods.
Excellent. Any questions for the chief?
Are they electric bikes?
No, they are not. Exactly. Our officers being fatigued, and when I say 2 policy, for example, we have just 2 officers like review, for one of them to be on a bike and then be exhausted by the time he gets to a call, as you can see where that would be the issue. With this, I hope to expand that program a little bit to include an e-bike. They're a little expensive.
Excellent progress. Thank you, Chief. I would just like to ask you a couple of questions. I would like to follow up on something that we talked about previously, which was the inordinate amount of calls we make to Walmart. And just let you know, I think I told you previously that the chief and I did meet with the manager of Walmart. He promised to hire more security staff and to also take some advice from the chief on ways that he could process shoplifting without the chief being there. They didn't make a lot of progress, but I understand we've had a subsequent meeting with them and things are looking.
I have not contacted the regional representative.
Okay, so anyway, progress is being made, hopefully. Okay, item L is a synopsis of the Advanced Leadership Corps Professional Development that Councilmember Cordell recently attended, put on by the School of Government.
Thank you for having me here today.
Would you state your name and address?
Address right there. The Advanced Leadership Training Program is designed by the School of Government, UNC in Chapel Hill. It's a week-long program that's offered once a year. It's to all elected officials in every county in North Carolina, 100 counties. At my class, there were 5 mayors, 10 commissioners, 6 councils, and 3 Board of Education. So they do a great job with mixing us up. The class that I was in had 24, and we had to commit. Filling out the application was a complete commitment. You had to say that you would be there every day from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. You did not get to bring your phone into the classroom. You were to listen because you were going to be involved. We ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. It was actually great. We were given the Myers-Briggs test, which is a personality test. It reveals 16 different personality types, and they're all normal, by the way. Our instructors grouped us into these small groups where they knew we had all these different personalities. Your personality type, your core values, and your past experiences heavily influence the leadership style that you carry with you in life. In the small groups that we were put into, we did group problem solving. It was a wonderful exercise. You know, here we are, we know we have differences of opinion, but we have the public right here. We know Clint Parker's gonna print everything we say. But at this class, when you're with a group that are 6 different personalities from you, they taught us ways to do problem solving that actually was really cool. And I would like to share that with you individually at some point in time when we have time. The instructors purposely put us in groups that they knew would be challenging for us. So I have one more homework assignment that I need to complete before I can, well, I graduated from the class, but I still have 2 more assignments to complete. And what I would ask that you would do for me is I'm going to hand out this values inventory. And what this is they had us circle 10 that you consider to be your core values. And then go back tomorrow or the next day and drill down to 5 of those that are your real core values. And I would like for you, you don't have to bring them back to me because I don't have to see what they are, but I'd like for you to bring them back to the next workshop or bring them to Jennifer, and she will help put our group core values into one of these. And then we can drill down and see what do we have in common. And if we don't have anything in common, then we'll drill down together and try to come up with, we'll circle again until we can come up with things that, as a group. Because one of the things that I found out that while I was there was I emailed Patrick and Jeff and said, could you look at the vision statement for me? I've got to go in there and talk about it today. And we are, as a council, probably going to rewrite some of our vision statement this year. And so a good place to start would be, what is our vision as a board?
Is that like phone a friend?
Pardon me?
When you call Patrick, phone a friend?
That was phone a friend, that was for
Needs some
sure.
help.
So clarifying our vision as a board, I think will be useful for us as we move forward and as we work together. And I would definitely highly recommend this class to anybody that's on this. I think that, as I was telling John, the biggest thing, the hardest thing I think for a lot of people is being able to give a week of your time. But it was excellent, and I'm so thankful that I got to go. And it did not cost us a lot of money because this is actually paid for with Prudential, which is now called Encompass or something, and they help pay for this. And so, like, when they fed us 3 times a day, good stuff. So I'm going to highly recommend that you think about this. I'm going to hand these out. Thank you.
So to make sure I understand, so what you want is to complete the worksheet and turn it into Jennifer. Is that,
Yeah,
make sure our direction is correct?
And do you have any questions for me?
Yes.
Yes.
Am I completing that about me, or am I completing that about about you?
No, this is totally about you.
She's giving us the class project.
Thank all
Right,
of you
right.
who helped me with the 360 review. It is wonderful to see how other people see you. And one of the things I was laughing with Andrew about is we all know that Andrew talks a lot. And so one of the things about learning that I learned about Andrew is that he brainstorms out loud. And that's totally acceptable personality. And then, I've learned that I look at the past, and that irritates some of you. But my crystal ball that I've used for the last 30 years in my job is I had to look at the past to predict the future. And I didn't make life and death decisions, but in supply chain and production control, I had to make decisions of how fast can I get this and it be reliable, and can I have it here tomorrow, or is it gonna be next week? So, thank you so much.
Thank you. We do have a hopefully short closed session, and Attorney Jackson, would you give us the proper language to do so with?
Yes, sir. A motion to go into closed session under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 to consult with the town attorney in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege, which is hereby acknowledged.
Is there such a motion?
Yes.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, we will meet in the small conference room in a couple minutes.
Do we pick 10? Catherine, you said pick 10, right?
Pick 10 that are your personal core values. Don't do it right this minute unless you just want to. And then go back tomorrow or the next day and only circle the 5 that you will turn into Jennifer, please. Well, what I would do is circle one and one
So, representatives from Madison County, but as it turns out, Catherine had an opportunity to meet another of the representatives recently, and you fill in?
Yeah, so what happened was, on Saturday morning, I went to Sam's. And I ran
Thank you,
into
sir.
Tim Moffett. And I
Tim
talked to
Moffett is a
him.
representative from
Tim
Henderson County.
Moffett is the.
Not adjourned.
No, sure.
Yeah, so I'm telling you. So I ran into Tim Moffett, and so we talked for about 15 minutes. And I proceeded to, the first thing I asked him was, why did you include Weaverville in your bill to take away the ETJ? So he talked to me for several minutes about that. And then he said, did you hear about North Carolina having this big surplus? And I said, what are you going to do with that? And he said, we're hoping to help small towns with their infrastructure. And we're receiving a lot of requests for it right now. And I said, well, then I'd like to put in a plug for the Ivy River Water Plant expansion. And I explained the whole thing. I told him about the river resiliency study that we had done that proved that everything still is really good, 67 years, only one bad day. And so he said, can you send me that? And do you know how much it's going to cost? And I said, well, we've got an estimate of 15 million. And he said, can you send me that? And so he specifically asked, can you send me that? I know that one person does not govern alone and that I should ask permission before I would do something like that. But I also wanted to bring up here that if they're asking for people now to send them stuff to look at, to think about, and he knows us, he's from here, he grew up in Hendersonville, he's like my age. And so he asked me point blank if I could send him that. So what I would like to know from you guys is, can you provide to me exactly what I would send him?
Yes, absolutely.
And so what we want to do is now make this request from two angles, from Moffitt's angle and from Henderson County angle and from Madison County angle. It only improves our chances. So if you all are good, we're going to proceed on both of those fronts.
Absolutely.
We've also got we've got kind of a better in with Chuck Edwards' group now, too, with
Your old school buddies,
former grad school friends.
that's right. So that, another good angle, Slim.
So
So
I think we should pursue every angle.
absolutely.
And I mean, I know we have voted that if we don't get any of these things, but there's so much opportunity out there. I think to continue to raise your hand and ask is the right thing to do.
Absolutely. Everybody good? Okay, we be asking.
Got it.
We're adjourned. Huh?
Right.
You don't have to have a